Hello everybody, Crystal Clear 101 here. Welcome back to my channel, and I have a rare treat for you today. I actually have a 4-in-1 review. That's right, I'm not doing not one, not two, not three, but 4 reviews, all in this one video. Now, what I have here in front of me is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles original comic book turtles. These figures were released in late 2014. They were a general release, and their original retail was $8.99. Now let's look over them. Now, these are supposed to be part of the Nickelodeon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line. Now, what I thought was neat is the fact they're actually doing like the original styles of them from the original Mirage comics. Now, from left to right, I have Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo. Now, there's a reason I figured I'd go ahead and do all 4 at once. Number 1 is the fact that I have all 4. Number 2 is, from the looks of them, they all look pretty much about the same. So for me, there'd be no sense of doing a separate video for each one, although I could. And number 3, they're all going to be pretty much about the same. So I figured for me it just made more sense to go ahead and do all 4 at once and 4 separate videos. Now with that being said, let's look over each individual packaging for each figure first. And we'll start with Leonardo. First off, we will have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles logo right up here, the Nickelodeon logo right up here. Now for all 4, they will have these right up here, along with this generic silhouette of one of the turtles. And right down here it says original comic book Leonardo, ninja master of the katana swords. Now with the exception of the name and what they're a master of, the front's going to be exactly the same for all 4 packaging, for all 4 figures. We go on to the reverse side. They will advertise for other Ninja Turtle characters, like the characters side with the turtles, characters side with the Foot Clan. And right up here it does have a brief little background about the history of the turtles, which I think is pretty neat. Back in 1984, a single 40-page black and white underground comic redefined the comic book industry and created a worldwide phenomenon. For 30 years, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have entertained and thrilled legions of fans across the globe, and they're still going strong. Which is true. This line originally did start off as a, not only originally as like a comic book exclusive, a comic book convention exclusive comic, but it was also originally a parody of other things going on at the time. But each one will have its own individual file, cutout file for each character. For instance, Leonardo, known as being brave, dedicated, and a master of his twin katana swords, Leonardo is the hero's hero, a force of good fighting against the minions of evil, and he's got a really cool shell. Alright, with that being done, let's move on to Donatello. And here is Donatello's. His simply says Ninja Master of the Bow Staff. On the reverse side, for his little cutout, it reads, the usually calm and collected Donatello has difficulty containing his enthusiasm when encountering new technologies, or when working on a new invention, or being hot on the trail of a scientific breakthrough. Plus, his kick-butt mastery of the bow staff makes him one unique turtle. With that being shown, let's go ahead and go on to Raphael. Next up, Raphael, who is the ninja master of the double-fisted sai. Now for his cutout file, it reads, quick to anger and slow to cool off, Raphael has mastered his twin sai blades, but not his own temper. Easily the most fearsome and fearless fighter of the group, Raphael often leaps into battle no matter what the odds, and often without looking first. Alright, that being shown, let's move on to the 4th and final one, which is Michelangelo. Now first off says, Ninja Master of the Dual Nunchucks. And for his it reads, among his brothers, Michelangelo possesses the most natural athletic abilities. His physical prowess, along with an enthusiastic imagination, comes in handy when action is needed to escape a dangerous predicament. Mikey displays his show-stopping persona and skills with the nunchucks. Alright, that being shown, let's now go over each individual turtle. And now we got the whole gang here assembled. Now, let's go ahead and look over each individual figure, starting off with Leonardo here. Now, let's go ahead and start this off in an appropriate fashion. Let's start off with Leonardo. Now, first off, let's get a 360 degree of this figure. Now, there's a few things I really like about these comic book style turtles, but then again, there's actually a few things I don't like about these. Let me start off with what I do like. It's the simple fact that these are styled after their original comic book appearance from the Mirage comics. So the fact that they're inspired by the original source, I think is awesome. And the fact that they're the same size as some of the other turtles from the TMNT line, I think that is actually pretty sweet. Now, the only other time I know of the Mirage comic book Ninja Turtles being released was by NECA, and that's been quite a few years now. Now, as far as my cons I have about these figures, you'll notice as I pull each one up, but they all seem to have the exact same body style. Now, there's 3 different heads between these turtles. 2 of the characters the exact same head. But if you were to take their weapons away, it would actually be hard to determine who was who. That is my complaint about these figures. Which is, without their weapons, you do not know who is who. Now, just to give an idea of design comparison, I'm also going to be bringing in the turtles from the Nickelodeon show. Now, which brings up a couple more complaints I actually do have about these figures. Number one, as you can see with this Leonardo here, he's got weapon storage for his primary weapons. Now, this Leonardo, his only storage really is his hands. He does not have any kind of storage whatsoever along his back. But another one I honestly have, this is with all 4 turtles, is they have a little less articulation than the standard figure. Now, the primary complaint really is going to be in the forearms. As you see with Leonardo here, he's got a swivel for his wrist. He's got wrist articulation. Whereas the Mirage-style comic book turtles, they do not have a swivel at the wrist. So the only position you can have their arms in is like that. And be able to twist at the elbow, that is about it. But so far, the only downside to these figures is the simple fact that they have no weapon storage, and they all look about the same. Now, something else I will go ahead and point out, if you notice, this figure has a tail. Because in the original Mirage comics, the turtles actually do have a tail. They have tails. Whereas, from, say, the original 87, 88 cartoon onwards, they don't have a tail. So the fact they actually paid this kind of homage to the originals, I think is actually pretty sweet. But for a design comparison between the originals to now, here you go. Here's Leonardo. And next one up, we have Donatello. And let me go ahead and bring out the TMNT Donatello. Now, like I said, they're all going to have pretty much the same style. Now, as far as we point out the different style heads, this one's got a little bit of, you can see a little bit of teeth right down here. Other than that, if you'll notice, they really have about the same kind of battle damage on the front shell right here. Really along the legs. I mean, it would honestly be hard to differentiate them individually. But as far as at least between Leonardo and Donatello has the little bit of where you see a little bit of his inner mouth right there. Whereas Leonardo is just completely closed off. But I mean, here is Donatello next to the Nickelodeon Donatello. Let me go ahead and give a 360 of these two figures. But the Donatello really he's pretty cool. I mean, granted, you'd only have him in a couple of poses with his bow staff because of the limited articulation. But aside from that, he's actually a pretty cool figure. So there's Donatello. Next up, we have Raphael. Now, I'll go ahead and bring in the TMNT Raphael just for a design comparison. Now, this is the one where both this figure and Michelangelo, they both share the exact same head. Now, I know on my camera right here, his bandana is showing up in red, which I think is appropriate. However, without the camera, it honestly looks orange. It really does. But as you can see, he comes with his twin size. Now, there is some slight battle damage on this part of his shell right here. Now, as far as overall design goes, here's a 360 of the two. I mean, this is a very cool set, a very cool idea. As I said, I wish they would just give him the same basic articulation as, you know, the regular Ninja Turtle figures go. But, I mean, this is it right here. Here is Raphael. And last up in this set is Michelangelo. Now, let me go ahead and bring in the TMNT Michelangelo right here. Now, as far as me saying how this Michelangelo and Raphael share the same head, well, here's Raphael. As you can see, they both have the exact same grin right over here on their side of the head. The only difference I can honestly tell you right now is Raphael has a darker shade of green, Michelangelo has a lighter shade of green. Other than that, they both share the exact same battle damage right here and on the head. The only thing they did was they darkened his skin tone a little bit. But with that being said, now, as far as me pointing out how the articulation can actually hurt these figures as far as poses go, Michelangelo is the prime example right here. I mean, it would be nice to be able to rotate his wrist, you know, so you can have certain poses with the nunchucks, but all you're really going to be able to get is to actually rotate at the elbow, pulling his elbow, or out. And on top of that, to me, he really does not have the best grip on these nunchucks. Because to me, as you can see, it just popped right out. I mean, yeah, they'll go in, but the slightest little bit of rotation, and they'll come right out. But other than his weapon, the only real difference between the Michelangelo and the Raphael, honestly, is the skin tone. Now, let me go ahead and give a 360 of both figures. And that is it for Michelangelo. And what was my thought on the vintage comic book style Ninja Turtles? Well, bear in mind, these are all each sold individually. These are each sold separately. But I honestly think these are cool despite the limited articulation and the lack of weapon storage. Because for me, I would have liked them be able to incorporate some form of weapon storage on these. But for the most part, they are just repaints of one another. Besides, I mean, as you can see, they all share the exact same body. And the heads are slightly different on each one, not by much. I mean, if you remove the weapons, then you really wouldn't be able to tell who was who. But, I mean, aside from my couple of complaints I do have about these are neat. If you love the original Mirage Comics Ninja Turtles, then this is a very nice little set to pick up. I mean, these are not just, you know, repaints or remolds of existing Ninja Turtle figures. These are original molds. And the fact they actually went so far as to include, the tails for each individual figure, I think was actually very cool. So if you can find these 4 figures, I would suggest you pick them up. These make for a very nice addition to any Ninja Turtles collection, and this does pay a great homage to the original their comic book origins. So if you can find them, do get them. They are very nice, despite the 2 main complaints I have about them. But that'll wrap up my review on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles vintage comic books, Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.